Hi, this is Shana Meyerson with YOGAthletica in Los Angeles, California, here today to teach you Pincha Mayurasana. Pincha Mayurasana is forearm balance, otherwise known as peacock feather pose. We're going to start off with a little lesson on anatomical proportions. This is sort of cool. If you take your foot, any foot will do, and you put the heel to your elbow, you're going to find that your big toe, if you're a normally proportioned individual, will come right up to your wrist. How is this relevant to yoga? How is this relevant to this pose in particular? It's relevant because when I'm just standing on my own 2 feet, which is a very balanced pose, I have the equivalent of 2 feet on the floor, right? But when I'm in Pincha Mayurasana, I have the equivalent of 2 feet plus 2 hands, which means I have an enormous amount of surface area on the floor, which makes it a very actually accessible and stable pose. People who aren't familiar with this pose look at it and think that it might be like a harder version of handstand, but it's actually way easier than handstand simply because A, you're lower to the ground, B, you've got so much more surface area on the ground, and C, it's just easier. Take my word for it, okay? Let's try this one out. Okay, first things first. You gotta have some sort of open shoulders on this one. Okay, so we're gonna do one quick shoulder opening exercise working in dolphin position, okay? For this first one, we're actually gonna clasp our hands, which we're not gonna be doing in our pincha, but we're gonna do it now. And make your elbows in a triangle, like you're about to set up for a headstand. And you can come into your dolphin. Dolphin is just like a down dog down on your forearms. But when you do your dolphin, notice how my shoulders are way back behind my elbows. If your shoulders are forward like this and you're trying to push back, this pose isn't going to work for you. You got to have all sorts of openness here, a little bit of meltiness. And if you were to walk in, you want to maintain the shoulders back so that they don't collapse in. But we're actually going to do a little shoulder opener. You're going to want to be a little bit long on this one. And we're going to go forward and see if you can touch your nose to the floor and then come all the way back, shoulders behind your elbows again. It's a nice hamstring opener too. All the way forward and all the way back, okay? You can do it like 5 or 10 times, okay? This is a really awesome one on the shoulders. Again, if your shoulders are on forward, Pincha Mayurasana is going to be pretty hard for you. Okay, so we gotta get that opening. Now, second thing in Pincha Mayurasana, you've got your open shoulders. Pincha Mayurasana also happens to be a parallel forearm pose, okay? Now, here's what happens with a lot of people, because the elbows are not fond of the parallelness of all this. For most people, the elbows are gonna collapse out and the wrists are gonna collapse in. And then people see that. Most people don't even notice that they don't have like body awareness, but they see and they're like, oh. And they take their hands and they turn them out to try to compensate. But now I still have really wide elbows. I still have really narrow wrists, but I just have wonky hands. So that is not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is a straight line that goes from your elbow to your middle finger, okay? Remember parallel lines that if they go on forever will never intersect. So I take my elbows down and I parallel my arm. So boink, straight forward. Okay, you can see those nice lines. And when I do this one, making sure that my elbows don't go out and my hands fall in again. Okay? Because that's what they're gonna want to do. What some people like to do here is grab a block and a strap. With the block and a strap, you take the strap and you adjust it until it's about shoulders width apart. Place said strap just above the elbows, okay? This is going to stop your elbows from collapsing out because they literally can't, they're stuck, right? Okay, they can't go out. When you do this one, make sure it's really close to your elbow because a lot of people do this and they put it up in their armpits. And then it's like, so you want to make sure the strap is not in your neck and not in your face. but down by your elbows. Okay, so strap stops the elbow from flailing, but it does not stop the hands from collapsing, right? I can do whatever I want with my hands. In, out, I can do a little dance. So what some people like to do is you take a block and you place it like this. Notice it's not resting in that webby part, but sort of my thumb and my forefinger tips are touching the block. Middle fingers will be facing forward. Okay, so what this is gonna do, it's gonna stick my arms so that my elbows don't go wider than shoulder distance and my hands don't go narrower. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's what you do with blocks and straps, but this ain't that kind of show. We're getting rid of the props. Okay, so we've got our forearms. Now, the forearms will naturally want to splay out. It's just what they do. So my suggestion, and by the way, if you don't have a Manduka black mat, get one. Because these are the only mats I know of that won't bunch up underneath you. And if your mat is bunching, you're missing out on this pose. And if you go to my website, you can actually get a discount code for buying your own Manduka Pro. Don't get the Pro Light, just get the Pro. Black mat, go for it. Now, okay, now, my forearms come down. Here's what I like to do. I like to cheat my elbows in because I know that they're gonna roll out. It's just what they do. So I start with my elbows closer than I want them. I turn my hands upside down, and then when they roll out, they wind up stuck right there in my parallel lines. Okay, so we're going to start today at the wall, okay? Assuming that you are not already in the middle of the room, otherwise you probably wouldn't be watching this video. When we work at the middle of the wall, when we work at the wall, you have to make sure that you're very, very close to the wall. A mistake that people make is they take Pincha Mayurasana, but they take it far away as if they were doing a handstand. Here's the problem. When I'm doing Pincha, not only do I have this distance from my elbow to my finger to get to the wall, just by putting my fingers right on the wall, but if I'm further away, I'm going to have the hugest back bend. Check it out. This is about as far away as a handstand. If I kick up, look how big that back bend is. Yuck. Okay? So I gotta make sure that when I'm working Pincha at the wall, my fingers are basically at the wall. Okay? I'm still gonna have this far to travel. It's still not gonna be a straight up and down pose, but it's gonna help a lot. Now, we talked about paralleling the arms. We also have to remember another thing. The shoulders have to remain basically above, maybe slightly in front of the elbows, but we don't want them to collapse. A lot of people collapse their arms, and just know that if you collapse your arms, you collapse your whole pose. If you can lick the floor, you are way too low, even if you're Gene Simmons. Okay, so I come to the wall. My fingertips are basically going to be at the wall. I stick my elbows in and let them slide out. Now they're parallel. My arms are about 90 degrees for stability. My fingertips are very close to the wall. I'm going to walk into the wall. Now I have fairly open hamstrings. If your hamstrings are not so very open, it's okay to bend your knees on this one. In fact, remember that whenever you jump, it sure helps to jump from a bent leg, so that bent leg actually will not inhibit you in any way. Make sure your gaze is forward. You want to look to basically where your thumbs meet. And I'm always a fan of bottom leg is my spring leg, top leg is my swing leg. They move in conjunction. 1, 2, look how far my head is off the floor. 3, oh my God, look how fast I hit that wall. The wall is so close, even though I'm in a big, big back bend, so be careful of that. Now, to get off the wall, we're going to talk about the secret to all of yoga, okay? If you don't know the secret to all of yoga, you gotta watch the video. I'm telling you, if you master this skill, your whole entire inversion practice and probably your entire practice is going to change tremendously. Dare I say, it will revolutionize your practice. So check out my Secret to All of Yoga video. The basic thing is core engagement. I'm going to try to just pull in my core by moving my ribs and my pelvis together to get me off the wall. Now this is a very important skill because remember that it's core engagement that is going to hold me up. And when I try to move just one leg off the wall, one leg, it's not going to be nearly as successful. I'm going to see if I can move from control. So I lock my elbows in, pull them out a little bit. My fingers are so close to the wall. I walk in any amount and look up. Just a tiny little kick, whoops, is going to get me there. Now I look forward, and again, watch this. I'm just going to pull my ribs to my pelvis to take me off the wall in my Pincha Mayurasana. My legs are active. Look how far my head is from the floor. My arms are pressing down in a root and rebound action, meaning the more I press down, the more I lift up, okay? So very important principle in yoga. When I relax my shoulders, if I collapse my arms, I'm going to be on the floor. I am going to tumble. So when I'm working the middle of the room, the concept again is very similar to handstanding in the middle of the room. Another plug, check out my freestanding handstand video for a lot of tips on how to move into this. So I'm turning away from the wall at this point. My forearms come down, and again, my elbows pull in tightly enough that when they roll out, they're going to wind up in a parallel position. When I kick up, remember that I'm always trying to get the smallest possible jump to get into my handstands. The harder I jump, the more momentum I have, the less control I'm going to have and the less balance. So I want a nice, light, floaty jump. Eventually, I just want to press into this one. That's my goal. So even if you don't make it up at first, start with very, very, very light jumps. My elbows are in, my fingers are forward, as is my gaze. I walk into my dolphin, but don't let your shoulders collapse. Pull them backwards, okay? Make sure that's happening for your body. My leg comes up. I'm going to start off with some little hops like this. Little hops. And remember that when you're practicing your little hops, the main thing you're looking for is a nice, clean, easy, silent landing, okay? That means you're using your core. Remember also that my leg is aiming for the sky. And then when I'm ready, I see if I can find my L-shaped pose and pull the leg up in control. This is all in the handstand video. It's the same actions. Notice I'm not dumping into my low back, but rather trying to get rid of a lot of that back bend. Okay? Of course, there is the scorpion variation. We're going to save that for another day, but it's actually a different kind of back bend. So don't be confused. When I say get rid of the back bend, that's because this natural back bend is in your lumbar curve. When we work in the scorpion, we're going to be working into our thoracic. So even though they're both back bends, there are differences. Now, once that becomes easy, instead of jumping, because my jumps have gotten so light, I start to try to float. Now this is going to be a combination of a number of things. Top leg is reaching for the sky like crazy, okay? So it's pulling me up. My forearms are pressing down like crazy. That's my root and rebound. It's pushing me up. And my core is pulling in to lift the bottom leg. Elbows are tight. Gaze is forward. I walk in any amount. Remember that your splits help a lot, so work those splits here. I lean in and boom. There's no kick at all, and I'm in my Pincha Mayurasana. What you do with your feet isn't so very important, so do what's comfortable to keep the legs straight and fully engaged. Ta-da! Pincha Mayurasana. I promise you, this is a surprisingly accessible pose. Have fun with it. This is Shana Meyerson with YOGAthletica in Los Angeles, California, wishing you a wonderful, awesome everything.